This is EntreEd Talk, the podcast for entrepreneurial educators by entrepreneurial educators. We are your hosts, Toi Hirschman and
Amber Ravenscroft. This podcast is created by the National Consortium for Entrepreneurship Education, or EntreEd for short. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of EntreEd Talk. We are delighted to be here today with Ashley Blackburn. She is the Director of Programs at Uncharted Learning. Before joining the Uncharted team last year, Ashley spent 12 years leading experiential learning efforts at the university level, working with faculty, co-curricular educators, and community partners to create local and global internship, service learning, and research opportunities as a way for college students to more deeply engage in and reflect on their own learning. Most recently, she directed Dartmouth College's institution-wide Experiential Learning initiative to integrate experiential learning as a core aspect of the Dartmouth experience. Ashley is excited to contribute what she's learned about experiential learning to the field of K-12 entrepreneurship education and is especially energized by the opportunity to build students' entrepreneurial mindsets and creative capacities. Hi, Ashley. Welcome.
Hi, Amber. Thank you so much for having me.
Ashley and I have been talking for a couple weeks. So a couple months now. Her stuff is so cool, Toi. Just wait. Wait till you hear about Uncharted. We'd like to start with kick off the conversation around your own entrepreneurial journey. And so growing up, how did you imagine where you would be versus where you are today?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, what a question for today when we think about what's happening in the world today. I never imagined that we would be facing some of the things that we are right now. I think, as a lot of people do, I probably thought that my journey would be rather linear, and quickly discovered that there would be lots of twists and turns, and some of those would be self-initiated and others would be sort of imposed on me by, graduating college straight into a recession with an English degree from a private liberal arts college. And just sort of embracing a flexible mindset, I think, pretty early on in my career. My journey didn't look like what I thought it would, but I think that's probably the story for a lot of us.
Definitely is. We have that conversation quite often because you go to school and you feel like that's your trajectory because that's what you were told to do. And then all of a sudden it doesn't kind of feel right, or you get some other opportunity and you go, it's an interesting journey for sure. So I just met Ashley, so I'm excited to learn more about her. You started out in the higher ed space. So can you talk a little bit about that experience and the differences that you're seeing between those populations, the higher ed and K through 12?
Yeah, absolutely. I originally planned, going back to the pivots that I've made, I originally planned to be a high school English teacher. And again, the world was changing pretty rapidly as I was getting ready to graduate college, and I knew that I would have to make some shifts. And so I had been heavily involved in college, I think as a lot of kids are, had different leadership roles and had done a lot of experiential learning myself. And so I started making my way more into the higher ed space and realizing that college faculty are actually not trained to teach in the ways that K-12 educators are, and that college faculty had a lot of great ideas and just maybe needed help actioning them. So I really, in the 12 years that I spent in higher ed, most of my jobs, one of the common threads was that I would support faculty in their teaching in different ways. They would have these wild ideas and they just wouldn't really be sure how to bring them to reality. I worked with faculty who they wanted to take students to other countries to experience professional conferences, or, I had a professor of anthropology who wanted to take students to an actual dig in South Africa. And so they would have these great ideas and they just wouldn't know exactly logistically how to navigate the resources, how to support students, in their holistic development and learning. And so I spent about 12 years doing that. And what I was starting to see was that more and more students were coming forward and saying, okay, I get it. Experiential learning is great. I did internships. I did service learning. I studied abroad. but now I want to start my own venture. I have my own idea. I don't want to do the things that you've designed for me anymore. I want to do my own thing. And how do I do that? And so I started really seeing this rise of interest in entrepreneurship. And I started feeling like it's great when students and faculty are coming to these opportunities at the college level, but we really need to reach them earlier. Mm-hmm. And so I started just kind of exploring the landscape of what's being done in K-12 education around entrepreneurship. And that was how I found Uncharted. The big difference, I think, to answer your question between what do I see in K-12 and what do I see in higher ed, I actually think there are a lot of parallels. I think they need each other. I think that, like I said, higher ed, they need help really on the kind of pedagogical side. How do you teach this? They're not trained to do that. Whereas K-12 educators are expert teachers. They know how to manage a classroom. They know all the best instructional strategies. What they need is industry connections. They need help having students apply what they're learning in ways that college faculty, I think, have a lot more freedom. You can't just take your high school class to South Africa.
What a shame.
Right. So that's where I see the difference. And I don't see it as, college faculty need to help K-12 faculty or vice versa. I really think we all need to come to this space together and see what assets and knowledge and ideas we bring.
I think that's so powerful.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge kind of wall to climb over, because it for some reason there's always been that separation. And you're right. They equally have a lot to gain from one another. So
yeah, and they don't talk to each other typically. So not on purpose, not by design. I just think it's sort of, we stick to our circles, right? And that can be unfortunate sometimes, those missed opportunities of imagine the conversations, imagine the collaboration opportunities if you got these people together.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. To your point about like K-12 teachers are taught to teach and college professors are taught to be experts in their field, but like that disconnect with teaching is so interesting to me. I've seen that multiple times. Like I have brilliant professors that truly just could not teach what they were passionate about to their children, to their students. So I'm curious about Dartmouth College's transformation in this idea of experiential learning, because I feel like a lot of places are shifting to that. So can you talk a little bit about what you did in that space and like what specific changes they implemented?
Sure.
For the program?
Yeah. It was a really interesting professional challenge and opportunity, because Dartmouth actually, especially among the Ivy League institutions, Dartmouth was already pretty highly experiential. A huge percentage of students studied abroad. The freshmen who are coming into Dartmouth participate in a week-long outdoor experience. That's their orientation, is they actually, they go hiking or they go canoeing or they go kayaking or whatever it is. I think really what my job was to help connect the academics and these what were often seen as extracurricular or co-curricular experiences. And so to help faculty realize that if you're going to do experiential learning, that doesn't mean that you have to take students to another country. What it means is you need to give students real applied opportunities to engage in their learning and reflect on what they're learning. And you can do that on campus. So it was more of a mindset shift, I think, for our faculty than it was like a mandate or a structural change or anything like that. And for me, it was a lot of fun, because the way we went about it, we tried to incentivize faculty to take these chances and take new risks in their teaching by offering grants and offering really dedicated support and partnerships, folks that would help them actually, enact these ideas that they had.
Transition, considering I just like a little background on what EntreEd and Toi and I see often is this idea that teachers at the K-12 level view experiential learning as kind of like those extracurriculars that you're mentioning, or entrepreneurship as an extracurricular like you're mentioning, but they're like viewing it on a much smaller scale than taking students to Africa, but it's still the same mindset that you can do this in your own classroom, which I think is fascinating, those parallels there.
Yeah, and that's what we talk about all the time, is how you bring, in even the smallest way, how you can bring some of that into what you're what you're doing, what your content area is.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And bring it to the classroom, that you don't actually need to get students off campus to do really powerful experiential learning. It's a pedagogy, it's a way of teaching. It's breaking up your lecture and engaging students differently and really building in the reflection. So I think that was the biggest shift I was starting to see. Was I felt like the reflective capacity at Dartmouth was going up, that there was so much more conversation about, how are we getting students to capture their learning and think about what they're learning and put it into practice in new ways. It was awesome. Great job.
It does sound like a lot of fun, and to be there and see that shift and to be a part of it. So you did also shift, and then you're now the director of programs at Uncharted Learning. I know that Amber prepped me. This is going to be cool to learn, but can you talk a little bit about Uncharted and what you guys are doing? What makes Uncharted unique?
I am more than happy to. I could talk for more time than we have about this. It's been such a rewarding professional shift and energizing in all new ways. So Uncharted Learning is a not-for-profit organization where we provide entrepreneurship education, so curriculum and professional development to teachers across the country that are using our programs and teaching our programs as part of the students' academic experience. So all of our programs are taught as a class where students are being guided through the entrepreneurial journey from start to finish. So we have elementary, middle, and high school programs. And in all of those programs, students are going through the entrepreneurial process. They're learning how to identify problems in their communities and see them as opportunities. They're generating ideas for solutions, and they're learning how to brainstorm and be creative in new ways. And then they're actually bringing their solutions to market in all of our programs. So even at the elementary level, students have the opportunity to put up their products on an e-commerce platform and engage with the market, in real ways, in real time. And at the high school level, kind of on the other end of the spectrum, students are bringing their products to the world, their products and services, their ideas, and they have the opportunity to pitch to actual investors for seed funding at the end of the experience. So, my main reaction when I learned about this was, where was this when I was in school? I feel like I would have gone in a completely different direction. And I think what I really love about what we're doing is that we're not looking at this as just for future business majors. All of our curriculum is designed to guide students through this process, regardless of what they want to do going forward. Most of our students end up being college bound, but not all of them are going to study business. And so what makes me, what really gets me excited about this is these students are going on to become entrepreneurial teachers or doctors or lawyers or whatever they go forward and do. They're learning to approach problems differently and have the confidence to really, generate their own solutions.
Can I say amen to that?
Yes, you can.
That's so awesome. I'm curious, is it a full year course? Is it a full year course at every level?
Yeah, so we'll talk about, I think the high school program, that was our first program. It actually started as a very local solution to a local problem, which was in our home district. The business courses were still being taught kind of as last century. And so it was the community, it was parents, it was members of the Board of Education, the Education Foundation, volunteers that all came together and said, this isn't how business works in the world anymore, and we need to shift. And so as soon as that happened, I think, other districts started saying, hey, would you be willing to share this? And so that's how, as a nonprofit organization, we were able to form and help other districts move in the same direction. So the high school program is called IncubatorEDU. That's the original program that got started in Barrington, Illinois, and still continues to this day. that program is a year long, and it's an academic program. It's often offered through the business department, but not always. And I think one of the differentiators that you had asked before about this is that students work in teams throughout the whole year. So they actually form a team. They work in that team throughout the entire year. They identify a problem, they generate solutions, and they go through all the ups and downs and the messiness that you can imagine that all of our teams in the real world go through. So, and that's important to us, that we're not producing solopreneurs, that we're really preparing students to collaborate and connect and harness the power of a team. And so they get to do that right from the first early weeks of the curriculum.
And I've been in an incubator classroom, and you can't call it a classroom. Like they shift you truly feel like you're in an incubator space. Like it is designed to, if you walk into it, not know that you are in a school, which is awesome for the students to feel like they're really a part of something that's this experiential process. I was wondering if you could talk about the mentorship piece, because you hinted that this came from a problem where the community was like, there's not a lot of involvement for these students. And can you talk about the mentorship component of EntreED and how it's delivered? I think is really unique to the program.
Yeah, absolutely. And this actually loops back to the question, that we were discussing earlier about the difference between K-12 and college educators. So for K-12 educators, one of their biggest challenges is they have been trained in education. A lot of them, if they were teachers starting out, if they weren't career changers, they might not have direct experience in the industry that they're teaching. And so one of our really core values is that we want all of our programs to be industry connected and have that real world application. So we want our students experiencing, what is it really like in a startup? What is it really like in the business world now? And so the way we do that is, we can't ask teachers to cover all of those bases. It's not possible for one person to have all of the expertise and all of the connections and all of the knowledge to pull that off. And so our teachers are core to the experience, but they're supported by volunteers. So we have mentors and coaches that actually come in and they teach. Some of the lessons are taught by coaches. So like the legal unit, for example, will be taught by an actual practicing attorney who comes in sometimes for multiple days at a time and teaches those sessions. So students get to connect with an actual lawyer and ask, real questions about how do I incorporate and what are the things I need to be considering. And then we also have mentors, and the mentors are the ones that are actually working with the teams. So as they start forming their business idea and working with their solution, then the mentors are really the ones that are right there with them, meeting with them typically weekly at least, and guiding them through that process. And we've seen some amazing mentorship relationships that have come out of this. We have some students out in Naperville who get together in the morning and play basketball with their mentor, in addition to having their, coffee meetings and things like that. And that's what we love to see, is these relationships that are being built, the networking that's happening at such an early stage in these kids' careers. I can't even say kids. These students' careers is pretty incredible.
Wow. So how do you guys find the mentors and the business and the community connections for the teachers, or do you help guide them to find them themselves? Because I know that's a lot of, we talk a lot about like expanding in entrepreneurship and getting the community involved. And that's always a hurdle for teachers because it's not, like you said, it's not something they're used to doing.
Yeah, it's a great question. So our model, and we've come to this pretty purposefully, is that we help the schools stand up the communities around them. And it's not a plug and play model. We're not saying, here's your roster of coaches and mentors, and then they come to your school and then they leave. What we really want is schools to start building out their entrepreneurial ecosystems around the school, because those are the lasting relationships and, support systems that we feel like schools can really benefit from. So we have a process of doing that. We have what we call a community champion model. So as we're bringing new schools on board, we help them really think about what kind of person, what kind of teacher do you need for this class? And schools hire their own teachers. But then we also help them identify within their Chamber of Commerce, within their Rotary, within their parent volunteer boards, who might be a really strong community champion who can help you then identify and recruit all these other potential volunteers. You know, they get out their Rolodex, if that's even still a thing, and and they are the ones who are identifying, you know, hey, I know a lawyer, I know an accountant, I know just all of these different maybe local business owners who might be great volunteers. And so they're helping to really stack that deck with the schools.
I know the incubator at Mundelein High School, which is where my in-laws work, and they really have strengthened their family engagement because they're utilizing parents, and like it's giving them a much more strong presence in the school, which I think is awesome because we talk a lot about family engagement and support of entrepreneurship education from a student perspective, that sometimes parents can be an underlying factor of whether or not they even pursue some of these approaches to things. So it's a really unique approach to tying in the community, tying in parents, strengthening student empowerment, all kinds of cool things happen in that space.
Yeah, and you hit it, I think, really, that when we think about volunteer opportunities at a high school, you might be able to work at a bake sale or, you know, be part of the PTA or the, you know, those kinds of roles, but these are much more substantial and engaging volunteer opportunities for parents. Mm-hmm. One of the side benefits that I've seen is when members of the community go in and they have to teach for maybe multiple days in a row, maybe multiple sections in a row, they come out saying, you know, teachers need more support. We need to do more for our schools. Let me write you a check, or let me advocate for you, or I'm going to vote differently in the next referendum because now I've seen it and I've lived it and I thought I knew what teaching was, but holy cow, I had no idea. So that's been a really nice side benefit. And that's one of the reasons that we want the volunteers to come from the communities where the schools are situated, because they become the biggest champions of their schools and their teachers.
That you bridge that gap too. It's kind of like the same. So you have the gap with the K through 12 and the higher ed, and then this is the K through 12 and the community.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, just from speaking with teachers, like I know teachers they want that, but they don't know how to get that moving. So sure. I'm excited that you have that framework to kind of help them navigate that. You know, all teachers want that involvement and want that real world piece, but don't know how to get it. And it does seem daunting. And I remember when I was a teacher, I was like, get this person. Why would they want to help me out? You know?
Right. And it is still daunting. I mean, I think our teachers are superheroes. They are managing, you know, it's not like teaching a regular course, all the different moving parts that they have to facilitate. And that's why, you know, I think a certain type of teacher is really critical for this. One of the other benefits, I think, is that we're transforming high school teaching. You know, you cannot teach this course without yourself becoming an entrepreneurial thinker. And then I have to believe, and I've seen this in action with, you know, in a lot of our teachers, that when they go to teach their other courses, they're approaching their other courses differently. And so that's the kind of large scale transformation, cultural transformation. That's what I get really excited about.
We just had a conversation about this, with our earlier interview, because it's so important. And I do want to go to the question about mindset, because that's what you're speaking to. Is there is a very big underlying current to anything involved in entrepreneurship education, is that those mindsets completely transform any person that is involved with them. So I was wondering if you could speak a little to entrepreneurial mindset specifically, and does Uncharted have a definition of entrepreneurial mindset that you advocate for, and like why is it important that we be promoting this for everyone?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, I think mindset is one of these things. It's kind of a hot topic, sort of a buzzword right now, right? Yep. You've applied in all different contexts. Especially with growth mindset and just kind of the rise of that approach. I think what makes it so powerful is that it cuts across all of these different silos. And so one of the questions I've always had about education is how did we come to break up subjects in this particular format? Why these majors? Why these classes? It never made complete sense to me. And so entrepreneurial mindset, I think, is something that regardless of what you're studying, regardless of what you're majoring in, you can apply what you're learning and, build your skill set and capacity in these ways that will serve you no matter what you do going forward. We don't have an official definition that we've adopted of entrepreneurial mindset, besides the fact that we know what we're trying to produce in students, which is resilience, creativity, problem solving, these kinds of skills, the 21st century learning skills that we know students need going forward. In addition to their content knowledge, we're looking at behaviors, skills, and knowledge kind of all at once. That's the goal.
I love that you said that, because that's a kind of a passion of mine as well, that we did that back, we started after the war and decided that we needed to be, okay, now I'm in science, now I'm in math, and it's still largely like that, where there's no thread. And that's why I've been like, entrepreneurship is the thread. You can connect all your stuff together and it makes more sense, and it's more real world. And so that's,
yes.
But we're the radicals, guys. We're actively trying to disrupt that existing mindset so that entrepreneurial mindsets can thrive.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to. I mean, you got to. We do a lot of stuff on the future of work as the foundation of why this is so important that we start addressing this like yesterday. Hi all, we are super excited to offer an exclusive discount for our listeners to attend this year's EntreEd Forum taking place on November 18th and 19th in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We have an incredible lineup of speakers and experiential learning opportunities to help you ignite entrepreneurial thinking and integrate entrepreneurship into your learning communities. Use promo code EntreEd Talk to receive 5% off of every individual registration. Again, that's promo code EntreEd Talk. To learn more about the forum and register, visit www.entre-ed.org today and subscribe for updates as we launch new things happening every week as part of the planning for the forum. Thanks. See you there.
We just had a conversation earlier today about kids being bored and kids not really getting why they are learning things. And with all of the kind of entrepreneurial opportunities and the technology and everything, now kids are like, you know what? I don't get why I'm learning it this way, and I can just go learn it on YouTube, and I can create this thing, and I can do. So they're starting to see it, and they're starting to kind of push back, I think. And we need to meet them where they are and go further.
Could not agree more. I was really encouraged by the thinking when I was at Dartmouth, and I see this also, as I've continued at Uncharted, that, information is no longer the purpose of education. You can go online to get information. And some people would even argue that you can go online and develop your knowledge, because knowledge is information, on another level. Mm-hmm. But this whole more advanced level of, I don't know what I would even call it. Maybe you guys have a good term for this, but applied knowledge and applied information. That's really what I think we're talking about. Being able to take in information and experiences and content and then translate that into something productive. To be able to do a project from start to finish, to have the confidence to tackle a problem, to come up with your own solutions. That's entrepreneurship. That's what we're talking about. And so that to me is something that you can't get online. I don't think that you could learn to be an entrepreneur strictly by taking in information, right? You have to have people who are guiding you through the process of how to apply it and how to, be flexible and address challenges differently. And that's where I see, when I think about experiential learning, that's the big connection point to me, is entrepreneurship is this applied form of learning. So that's what I think we're trying to do. And it can be done from a distance. It can't be done without human connection, right? And people in your network guiding you through this process.
I'm just going to raise the roof.
You can't read the textbook on entrepreneurship and then all of a sudden become an entrepreneur, right? It's not that simple. You have to actually do it. You have to do it to be it. So, and that's what I think really we're trying to do with teachers and students.
That is so, so powerful that we've shifted so much with, like you said, the knowledge is there. We've got knowledge in our pockets, but it's that, I think that's where the entrepreneurship education part comes in, where you have these guides, because like my kid got a guitar and my first thought was, I'm going to get you some lessons. And he's like, I don't want any lessons. I'm like, well, how are you going to learn the guitar? He's like, YouTube. And at first, my first, spontaneous thought was, well, you can't do that. And then I sat back and went, wait a minute, you can do that. And maybe I can help you find some good stuff. And I think that that's where the entrepreneurship educator comes in. It's like, okay, you've got all this, let me help you make sense of all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. Let me, vet good resources. And I think that kind of that facilitation idea is where it's at, and in a safe place, because they're still technically students. So who cares if you fall flat on your face?
Right, exactly. What a better place to do that than when you have, strong, capable, compassionate adults to help pick you back up. There's a lot of talk, I'm sure you guys have talked about this before, but just about failure and the impact of failure and failure being part of the process. To me, it's not even failure. That has such a terminal implication to it. It's more just like, you know what? This is part of the process. This is making mistakes and getting back up. That's part of the journey. It's not a failure. It's just one point along your journey. So, I've long thought of teaching and education as being a process of having students' backs and getting out of their way. And that's what I think we need more of. And I think that's what students need more of, is just to be unleashed, but also to continue to be supported in that. So that's really what we're trying to do.
I love that. Have students' backs and get out of their way. I think we're just going to start making slogans from all of our guests. We're going to have t-shirts. We're just going to sell them. On that note, like, we like to end with, would you consider that your parting advice for educators interested in this space? Or is there any kind of final tangible, if they're new, I'll say that with this, like, say you're an educator in any classroom, like you're an English teacher, you're a math teacher. What do you feel would be like a good first step for somebody in this space? I'll pose it that way. I'll reframe a little bit.
Honestly, I think one of the good first steps would be to try to do this yourself. Try and open your own mind. I really believe this is something that we can't guide students through unless we've reflected on our own learning in this space. And I love that you started our conversation this way. Like, how has your life been entrepreneurial, and what was your journey like? I think that's the place teachers need to start, is think for themselves, what do they want to change about teaching, their own teaching, and then just in general, education as an industry, and really think about their role in that and reflect on what they can contribute and what they've been through and how that can really, lead them to a new place in their teaching. I think I would just encourage teachers to take risks. I think a lot of times we can get so complacent in our lesson plans and in the curriculum, and that's not what this is about. I've heard from lots of our teachers that this has re-energized and refreshed their teaching in ways that they never even imagined. And so, that's the place I would start with teachers, is just take some time to think about your role in this, and what do you want to contribute to your classroom and your students, but also to the future of education.
What a great way to end. That's so powerful.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. This was great.
Yeah, no, I have been wanting to get you on the podcast for a while, since I started learning about Uncharted. So we're very thankful for you. Where can the people that are listening go to learn more about the programming that you're doing, or just to connect with you if they have any questions? How would it be best to reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. We are at unchartedlearning.org, and you can visit us there. And you're welcome to find me on LinkedIn, Ashley Blackburn. You're welcome to connect with me via email, ashley@unchartedlearning.org, whatever. Reach out however you would like.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Ash. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks, Ashley.